is the dead horse here to ask why it is that Anastasia has more chemistry with literally every single person than the actual love interest. Yes, we're at the point of dragging out Horace. Hello and welcome to Precontation Points Video Snark. If you came here because you thought that this was an audiobook, please stick around and maybe learn some reading and listening comprehension skills. I read books, discuss what went wrong, and how they can possibly be fixed. I'm continuing my read-through of Icebreaker by Hannah Grace. Not the first video, go check out the others, links are posted below. Chapter 13. Anastasia continues to grind on Nate. She starts moaning about how badly that she wants him, and I'd like to remind every single person, including the author, who seems to have completely forgotten that they are in a car with 8 other people, including the poor Uber driver. He starts rubbing her in an insanely not PG way. And I'm like, at what point should the others choose to jump out of the moving vehicle? Like, this is making me hella uncomfortable. Imagine being literally right next to this and unable to get away. He starts to dirty talk, and I'm super serious that there's not enough hell no in the freaking universe to cover all of this. I am going to go and vomit right now. They pause briefly to get McDonald's before stopping at, I think it's Nate's house, but who could be Anastasia's, who knows. As I pell out, Lowell asks Anastasia if they had sex in the car, which she says no, playing only by President Clinton rules, I guess, and the fact that the others in the car acknowledge that they knew what was going on makes it a billion times worse. At the house, Nate and Anastasia run upstairs to his room. She forgets the code for Nate's door and then giggles over the fact that she'd been using Ryan's door code instead. This leads to Anastasia trying to explain her friends with benefits situation to Nate, except that it's over now. Nate gets weirdly jealous over the entire thing, to the point of him turning into even more of a red flag. Like, thank you for taking the time to establish that you do want an actual relationship with Anastasia before the two of you start acting like bunnies, but acting like you should be the singular person in Anastasia's life who fulfills her not only in the bedroom but also emotionally and intellectually. That's seriously super gross. On the exact opposite end is Anastasia, who brushes off Nate's pleas and insists that it's not that serious. How are they of two different opinions, yet they're both so toxic? She begs him to get on with it, but he says no, that he's not feeling it right now. I want you to want me when you're sober, Anastasia. This is the first green flag in 13 chapters. The bar is so deep underground, it's a tavern in Hades. Anastasia is obviously hurt and upset by this rejection. He offers to cuddle with her, but she's a girl who's clearly into hookup culture. She probably doesn't even kiss on the mouth. Nathan proceeds to fall asleep instantly, despite the fact that nothing happened. Anastasia calls for an Uber. Chapter 14. The chapter starts off with Nate kicking himself for saying no, that no sane man would have turned down a hot girl that he'd been dreaming about for weeks. Except his reasoning is that Anastasia was drunk. We're slowly getting into rape culture over this. He isn't wrong to have told her as much. It wasn't like he told her that he suddenly found her repulsive, that he didn't actually want to be with her, full stop. He told her that he wasn't going to do it like this when she was drunk. He then tries to call her, except that we need an aside to explain to the readers that Anastasia put her name in his phone as, I am not kidding, Uber slut. I really wish that I was making that up. Anyway, some time has passed since that incident, and she's gone back to ignoring him, which I kind of feel is for the best. I only wish that it would remain like that. Anastasia is so toxic. I honestly think that Nate deserves better. He's hardly a prize, but Anastasia is way worse. I guess it's only the next day since then he goes downstairs and the others mention seeing Anastasia running through in only Nate's shirt. He asks Lola if she's ready to go home since he only wants to talk to Anastasia. However, Lola says that Anastasia was pretty drunk and only wearing Nate's shirt, that she wasn't even going to trust Anastasia in an Uber. She only went upstairs to sleep in Henry's bed. So when asked where Henry slept, the others imply that he probably slept with Anastasia. They also imply that the reason why Henry isn't down there with them is because he and Anastasia... Why is this book so insistent upon hooking up Henry with Anastasia? Why couldn't we have gotten this romance instead? This leads Nate to barge into Henry's room. Anastasia is still in Henry's bed, but she's still wearing Nate's shirt. Henry makes some excuse and leaves the room, but he's obviously not important here. Nate tries to apologize for having stopped last night, but Anastasia gives a speech about how consent is important. And it's like, thank you for reminding the readers about this, but following Nate's wallowing at the start of the chapter, it feels a little off. He then explains that he wants more from her than a singular roll in the hay. However, she expresses that she's not really interested in anything long-term with anybody. I need to be honest. I'm not into the whole exclusive thing. I don't like the commitment. I don't have the time. My schedule is full as it is. She says this, but somehow has the time to go to multiple parties a week and to hook up with people. Clearly, she can make some time. Girl, if you aren't interested, simply tell him as much. Don't string him along with some false hope that he might be able to change your mind one day. But at the same time, at least they're being open and honest about their expectations moving forward. Even if I wish that the book would allow Nate to simply give up on this. However, she still desires him physically, and being a man means that despite his own long-term relationship goals, he's obviously more willing to let her do whatever she wants with him. Ugh, why are men? Now that she's not drunk, she then tells him that he's back on her bad list, that she's not going to be able to forgive him unless she gets her rink back, which, if that's her measure of hate, why doesn't she hate all the other figure skaters? Surely they're taking away precious time from her too. She also doesn't hate anybody else in the hockey team, only Nate. This has reached new levels of stupid. Being back on Anastasia's hate list mainly means a lot of clearing from her. Now, instead of doing hockey practice after Anastasia and Aaron, they're doing it before, and the hockey coach likes to push his luck as much as possible. I am once again asking where literally any other figure skaters are. It can't simply be literally two allowed to have free reign over an entire rink all school year. Make it make sense. One day, Anastasia gets fed up with waiting for the hockey team to finish, so she goes out onto the ice. Some of the hockey boys who do notice complain to their coach that she could get her. However, Anastasia is too fast for all of them. Nate only catches up with her when Anastasia stops the spin. He carries her over to the box like she's some kind of belligerent child, which, I'm not gonna lie, she kind of is acting like one. Maybe if more people told her no, she wouldn't be such a stuck-up witch with a B all of the time. Anastasia insists that she has plans, ones that don't involve being held back in her own practice simply because the hockey team doesn't know how to tell time. However, Nate gets jealous and upset when she refuses to tell him, which I'm kind of on her side about. It's seriously none of his business. Later, Nate texts her to demand to know where she's going. However, she's having none of this and says some kind of crude things, but also issues him a challenge that if he can find her, she'll give him oral. As Nate sits back to think about her challenge, he's like, I'm a stalker. Why am I so obsessed with her? Once again, it's great that Nate in the book acknowledged this. However, this is a meaningless line if he never once actually changes his creepy behavior. Chapter 15. Anastasia enjoys watching as Nate checks all of the campus parties in an attempt to find her. I'm honestly not enjoying this. I still don't know why she's so angry with him, and the narration has never once bothered to explain anything to us. She simply hates him, and that's that. The most forced and contrived enemies to lovers nonsense imaginable. Anyway, after a while, Nate video calls her and gets angry that she's in his room. She tells him that everybody else is partying at his house, so where has he been? However, it turns out that there isn't actually a party going on, and Anastasia is simply being a terrible person. Again. JJ and I have developed an unlikely partnership rooted in the mutual enjoyment of annoying Nathan. Horace the Dead Horse here to ask why it is that Anastasia has more chemistry with literally every single person than the actual love interest. Yes, we're at the point of dragging out Horace. The narration also reminds us of how much of a catch that Henry is. Anastasia wishes that she had a sister to marry her off to Henry, but never once considers for a second that she herself should marry the dude since he's apparently such husband material. Ugh. However, the hockey team is down to mess with Nate, and they come together for an absolute last-second party, despite the fact that it's like 5 minutes to midnight, but the thought of trolling their captain is too great, I guess. Anyway, Anastasia knows that she probably pushed Nate too far and is on her way to intercept Nate before he can kill any members of his team. However, before she can get to him, some random girl gets to Nate first. Anastasia gets super jealous when Nate turns and leads this girl upstairs. My, it's odd now that the shoe is on the other foot, isn't it? However, about 10 minutes later, Anastasia sees the same girl chatting with her friends. That wasn't enough time for a hookup, and the girl also doesn't look like she'd been doing the hanky-panky anyway. Anastasia confronts Nate, who insists that the girl simply needed to use his private bathroom because of her period. However, I feel like once we see this from his point of view, he's going to privately admit that he asked a girl to approach him or something. That is exactly how little faith that I have in him. However, since it's ticked Anastasia off, the two of them start fighting, and then that leads to them furiously making out. And again, I'm all for enemies to lovers, but this entire book simply rubs me the wrong way. This ain't it. They start getting hot and heavy, clothes start to come off. However, the chapter ends before the main event, which is probably for the best that it gets to have its own chapter at this point. However, this also means that the main event is from Nate's point of view. Chapter 16. The entire first page of this chapter is spent with Nate musing about how much he wants Anastasia, about how she's going to ruin me for other women. Ugh. Also, despite my earlier prediction, the random other girl hadn't been planned, but Nate had used her in order to make Anastasia jealous. I ain't a big red flag for that alone. After some tedious arguing about the pace that both of them want to take, Anastasia wants fast and angry, and Nate wants for it to be slower and gentler. They finally get started. And yep, There it is. Fanfiction smut is written by virgin teenagers. The correct words are used, like Jeep's fun as much, but the bar is on the ground with that. I'm not going to give an award for knowing grown-up words and terms. On top of the already terrible plot, does the actual porn have to be bad as well? I'm serious. I think I took physical damage reading this. Anyway, this goes on for 3 pages this time. The bar is on the ground at this point. After they finish, Nate leaves her alone in his room to get some supplies from Henry's room. However, he's startled to find Henry making out with a mystery woman. After grabbing some things, Henry explains that the woman was Briar's sister. Who is Briar, you ask? I have no clue. The author is so intent on shoving in as many characters as possible to the detriment of literally the entire book. Henry also warns that if Nate leaves Anastasia alone again, Henry is going to take her. Why does he still have more chemistry with Anastasia than Nate? Nate goes back to his own room where he proceeds to wash Anastasia's hair for her. However, this kind gesture seemed kind of lost on Anastasia, who was acting like it's weird and creepy that he's doing this. Nate also loses brownie points because he doesn't know what conditioner is. I give up. Men is to headache. After their shower, Anastasia falls asleep against Nate. He stays awake and tries to come up with a plan to convince Anastasia to be with him forever, but he can't think of anything, which I think is for the best. His behavior is creepy and predatory, and the only reason why he even got this far with Anastasia was obviously because she was only looking for something quick. Thanks for listening to my book Snark on YouTube. New videos are up every Monday, but stick around because I sometimes drop random videos on other days too. Just as a reminder, even if you can't financially support me, there are other ways to help me out. The first is watching this video as well as all of my other videos. It's also important to like and subscribe. Finally, you can share this video with all your friends so that they can help as well. If you're already caught up with all of my videos, you can go to Tumblr for my main book Snarks, always free and updated every morning. Newly added to Patreon is to become a member without paying. You'll get access to the same things on Tumblr, but on Patreon. Supporters can have access to so many more books now starting at $1 a month. Also new is a 1-week free Patreon trial, so be sure to check that out. Special thanks to Dawn, Phoebe, and Nikki for supporting me on Patreon already. If you want to hear your name in my video next week, either support me on Patreon or make a one-time donation. Do you like my Snark so much that you want me to snark your writing? I do that too. For just $6 per chapter, I will tell you how awful that your writing is. But not to worry if you feel like you couldn't take the criticism. I also offer regular book editing as well, just $10 per chapter. You can contact me on any of my social media platforms if you have further questions. If you want to read some of the things that I've written, you can purchase my works on Amazon. I have a slew of spicy short stories and 2 full-length novels. I also frequently run flash sales on my stories, and if you don't follow me on any social media, you might want to do so just so you know when I might be offering things for free. Links for everything will be posted below. See you next week, guys!